Vlogging just got a whole lot harder on this trip. My camera is on the fritz. It seems to have completely stopped working this morning. I'm going to be using my second camera, which is a little DSLR that I brought with me just for photos. We went on a glacier hike yesterday. It was a ton of fun, but it was very uncomfortable because it literally rained the entire time. The total duration of the hike was about 4 to 5 hours, and we were on the glacier for a good 3 hours in non-stop pouring rain. We came back to the hotel and we were not pooped from the hike because it was relatively easy hike. It was very easy to go onto the ice. It wasn't slippery. It wasn't dangerous as far as we could tell. Our guides were fantastic. It was unlike anything I've ever experienced. I've never seen a glacier, let alone walked on a glacier, so it was very informative and educational and a ton of fun. Definitely a once-in-a-lifetime experience. I don't think I'm aching to go back, but I'm so glad we did it on this trip. Even though we had rainproof gear on and tons of layers, I still got soaked from the waist down. My feet were soaking wet by the end. My snow pants are water resistant but not quite waterproof, so my legs were soaking wet. My mittens were completely drenched. I had to wring them out a few times, and my backpack got soaked through as well, but my torso stayed dry, which was really nice, and I was able to keep warm because of that. We came back to the hotel room and we were pretty much mentally drained from the rain. It rained probably for 24 hours straight, and it wasn't just a light drizzle. At times it really came down. We just came back to the hotel room. We dried off. We went to the sauna downstairs. We washed some of our clothing. I washed all of my socks because I only brought 5 pairs, so I'm towards the tail end. And then there's a great heater in this room that spans the length of the interior, and we just put our things on it and everything dried overnight, so it's perfect. We did want to see the Glacier Lagoon yesterday, but we just couldn't psych ourselves up to go out, so we decided to save it for today. Is it cold? Hey everyone, it is the next day. We are at the Fosshotel Eastfjords. This is a beautiful area full of snow-covered mountains. It's a little fishing town. The air smells like salted cod, and it's just been a really nice, relaxing night. Yesterday we had a fantastic day. We spent a lot of time in the car on the road, just driving to this destination. I think all in it was around a 4-hour drive from the hotel, but we took a really long stop at Diamond Beach and the Glacier Lagoon. Didn't think we would stop for that long. In total, I think we were there for almost 3 hours because there was just an abundance of wildlife and it was like nothing we've ever seen before. A lot of this trip actually has been nothing we've ever seen before. Yesterday at the Glacier Lagoon, we spent a lot of time taking photos. I have a few clips for you guys which I will insert in this video. Using the DSLR has been okay. I've had to adjust to it a little bit, but I've kind of embraced it now, and it's been a lot of fun just taking photos and short clips for this vlog. At the Glacier Lagoon, we saw a ton of birds. I was very obsessed with photographing birds. I've always been like that with wildlife. I just love photographing animals. Hubby and I are both like that, and that's what eats up a lot of our time when we travel. We can watch animals for hours and hours and hours. Took so many photos of the Arctic terns, I think they're called. They flew very close to us overhead, so I was just very obsessed with taking photos of them. And then in the Glacier Lagoon, we were lucky enough to see a seal. His head kind of popped up for a bit and he was swimming around with his head above water, and I noticed him right away, and hubby and I took a few photos of him, although he was still really far away, so the photos didn't turn out that well, but you can definitely see that it is a seal. After we left the lagoon, we started the long drive. We hadn't planned out any other stops, but there was this beautiful vista that we had to stop and take a few photos. It was just a perfect mountain scene with a waterfall. After continuing along on our drive, we spotted reindeer. I was so excited. I think it's pretty common to see them in the wintertime if you happen to be in this area, but in the summertime they generally forage a little bit higher for food, so we were really surprised to see them, and we stopped and took some photos. We didn't get out of the car, we just opened the car window and took a few photos, and it was really, really nice to see them. We arrived safe and sound at the Fosshotel Eastfjords, and this is a really charming hotel that's kind of got a French theme to it. Actually, this whole town has a little bit of a French flair. We have such a gorgeous view of mountain peaks and a really nice dock that goes into the body of water. It's just absolutely beautiful. Unfortunately, we're only here for one night, but we're ready to move on. We're gonna try to see puffins today, so fingers crossed that it happens and we will all get to see them together. We are in our hotel in Akureyri. We had a really good day yesterday. We saw puffins. They're so cute. They waddle around, and when they fly, their wings beat really fast, so it makes like this whooshing sound. And when they land, they spread their legs apart so they can kind of like launch themselves into wherever they're trying to land. So they're so awkward and so clumsy, but they are so cute, and we spent around 2 hours watching them, photographing them. I used my DSLR, so I was able to get some decent shots. My hubby's camera though, he has one of those super zoom, he calls it a point and shoot, and he was able to get some really good shots. The puffins were a good probably 3-hour detour off the ring road. So the rest of our day was a little bit compressed, but we still managed to squeeze in a lot of stops. We saw a whole bunch of waterfalls. We did not go to Foss, which is the biggest waterfall, but we've been reading about it and looking at the photos and such. We didn't really feel it was worth the detour, especially since it was a little bit later in the day and we were exhausted from driving around essentially all day. When hubby was looking into whether or not he wanted to see the falls, because I'm not really a waterfall person, I think they're beautiful, but I wouldn't really go out of my way to see them. But hubby seems to like them a little bit more than I do, so he did some research to see if he wanted to see the falls, and he came up with all these facts about Niagara Falls, and I guess we're pretty lucky to have that essentially in our backyard. I didn't realize that Foss is actually a little bit shorter than Niagara Falls, and the volume of water is also a fraction of Niagara Falls. But we did see a lot of other waterfalls, including the very beautiful Foss. It's a horseshoe style set of falls, and it's just very beautiful. The other stop we made that was really interesting was the mud pots. So this area we read about, and I knew I wanted to see it because it's different from anything we've ever seen before. I read on TripAdvisor that the smell is really bad. It's very strong of sulfur, but we've been smelling that throughout the course of this trip, and we've smelled sulfur before, so I thought it wouldn't really get to me, but when we got there, the stench was overpowering. I was shocked by how bad it smelled. Initially when we got out of the car, I was like, it's not too bad, but as we got closer and as the wind blew a certain way, it was quite vomit-inducing. I decided to grab a scarf and just tie that around my nose and the lower part of my face so I could breathe without taking in too much of the scent. That was basically it. Last night we checked into our hotel and then we went to the swimming pool. This particular park was incredibly fun. Of course I don't have much footage of it because you're not allowed to bring phones or cameras inside with you. There were two really fun slides, very long and very steep and fast. They had multiple hot tubs. They had one where you could turn on like this jet that massages your upper back, your neck and shoulders. It felt so good after a long day in the car. And then they have a more traditional whirlpool type area with jets for your lower back. We spent probably an hour just soaking, trying the different tubs, and then we were a bit hungry, so we decided to have hot dogs for dinner. We've been having a lot of nice meals, and we just wanted something simple, easy, and hot dogs are a big thing here in Iceland. So we decided to try a little hot dog stand down near the town square. We got it with the works, so I think there were 2 types of onions, 3 or 4 types of sauces, and then the hot dog was just like a standard wiener style hot dog. I think this one had lamb in it. I could taste the lamb, but hubby couldn't. Hubby loves lamb and I'm a little more sensitive to it, although I've been eating a lot on this trip. And then we headed back to our hotel and that was our day. Our hotel is very nice. It's very bright and very spacious. This is the Icelandair Hotel Akureyri. Decent sized room, very spacious. It's interesting because the shower's on one side of the bed and then the toilet and sink is on the other side of the bed, so you kind of have to go around if you want to use both. Hey everyone, we are now at the Fosshotel in Hellnar. This is our last stop before Reykjavik. We're going to be driving there today, but we're going to explore more of this peninsula. It was about 5 hours from Akureyri to Hellnar, and we made a few stops along the way, but they were well worth it. We got up close and personal to some Icelandic horses, and hubby later read up on them, and apparently they are the most agreeable horses in the world. They have a very friendly and calm disposition, and they came right up to us. We got to pet their noses. We got tons of photos of them, and we spent quite a bit of time with them just on the roadside. They were very, very, very sweet. Then we continued on and we saw these basalt columns, which are a very interesting geological formation. It's very Game of Thrones-esque. It was so misty and foggy at that point that it just added to the whole atmosphere. I was reading a blog post, which I will link down below, that talks about mineral springs in this area. It's basically natural mineral water that is lightly carbonated. There was one such spring that I was really interested in, but the directions to it weren't crystal clear and there weren't any reviews on it that were recent. I didn't know if the water source had maybe dried up or if people were just not going there anymore, but we decided to chance it since we were a little bit stir crazy from the car ride. We wanted to have a little bit of a hike, and there was supposed to be a 10 to 15 minute hike to get to this spring. We drove to the end of this dirt road and walked through a beautiful moss-covered lava field, and we came upon a gorgeous open plain with a waterfall at the end of the valley. We veered off in the direction where the spring was supposed to be, and there it was. So we had brought our water bottles. We filled up on this beautiful, fresh mineral water. It is lightly carbonated. Took a little sip there because we had to use the washroom and we didn't want to drink too much. It tasted so clean and fresh. A little bit on the mineral side and definitely lightly carbonated, but nothing quite so strong as, say, a Perrier. So we filled up our bottles and then we headed back to the car. We were gonna make 1 or 2 more stops before heading to the hotel, but it started pouring rain, so we decided to stay in the car and just relax for the rest of the day. We went for dinner at the restaurant in the hotel and it was very nice. We shared the scallops for our appetizer. My husband got the cod and I got the seafood soup as my main, which was perfect. I wasn't too hungry from snacking in the car again. Slept early, woke up early, had breakfast at the hotel. We went on a morning hike to the next town over, which is Arnarstapi. It's a 2.5 kilometer hike, so 5 kilometers round trip. Lots of beautiful views with waves crashing into cliffs and moss-covered lava. It is really, really nice. The air is very brisk here. It is starting to drizzle a little bit. It's still quite misty and cloudy, but I'm hoping that it stays dry. We're going to be doing the coastal drive around the peninsula, and then there are a few stops we want to make before we head to Reykjavik for our last 2 nights here in Iceland. Hi everyone, we are now in downtown Reykjavik. We finished our drive around the ring road yesterday. After having breakfast at the hotel, we did a coastal hike, which I've already already told you about. Packed up our car and we went on a drive around the peninsula. We made several stops, the first one being at a black sand beach. This beach was beautiful. It is really, really deep, and then there's kind of a lake in the back. There's also the remains from a shipwreck scattered along the beach. You're not supposed to disturb the remains. They have left them there on purpose. There are also these 4 lifting stones that fishermen used to use to test their strength. They are extremely heavy. I moved one of them, but I didn't attempt to lift it. I think I maybe could have lifted the smallest one. It was around 50-ish pounds. After a brief stop there, we went to a golden sand beach, which was very different. The western part of the island is the only area that has lighter sand beaches, so they call them pink, yellow, and/or golden sand. And it was beautiful, very calm, very peaceful, because there's literally nobody there except for a handful of other tourists. We stayed there for a little while and then we continued our drive around the peninsula. We were driving clockwise, so our next stop was this gorgeous mountain. This is apparently the most photographed mountain in Iceland. There's a very popular shot that's across from a waterfall with the mountain in the background, so we of course have that shot. There was a rainbow that popped up when we were there and it was perfect timing. We got some beautiful shots and then it was time to move on again. After that, we decided to go to the second mineral spring that we wanted to go to the day before, but it had started pouring rain. We went to this little spout coming out of the ground and you could see more of the mineral water bubbling up on the surface. There's tons of iron in this water, so it turns the dirt on the ground this interesting reddish, pinkish, orangish hue. We read about the really strong iron taste in this water, so we had little cups from our hotel and we used those instead of filling our water bottles, just to have a taste before we decided whether or not we wanted an entire bottle of this water. We loved the mineral water from the day before and we easily finished our bottles, but this one was a little bit too strong for our liking. I was okay about it, but hubby really didn't like it. We decided not to fill up our bottles and then we continued to our last stop before Reykjavik. We went to another light colored beach. This has what they call pink sand. It had a ton of seaweed and rocks and such washed up onto the shore. This beach was really attractive to us because there are often seals lying on the rocks just outside close to the waterline, and also they sometimes come up on shore. There were none on shore when we went, but we did see a bunch on the rocks and we took lots of photos and videos of them. We didn't stay there too long because we still had a 2-hour drive back to Reykjavik. When we got here, we checked into our apartment. This is a really nice apartment with a little kitchenette. It's very, very spacious. There's a really comfortable lounger where I just spent my time reading a book yesterday. The bed is quite comfortable and it's just got all of the provisions we need for probably like a week or 2-week stay. However, we're only here for 2 nights. We are currently in our only full day in Reykjavik. Have no formal plans for our time here. We're just gonna take it easy. It's the tail end of our trip and we just want to relax and kind of play it by ear. We eventually will ascend to the top of the church that's in downtown Reykjavik, but not right now. We're instead gonna go to a bakery, which is a recommendation from one of my coworkers. We're gonna have breakfast in the apartment. We bought some skyr yesterday, which is a cheese that's widely regarded as yogurt, and the rest of the day we're just gonna play it by ear.